Right, Steve, welcome to episode 7.
7?
Yeah, so we're going to talk today. We're going to do, last time we did stages of life, so it was kind of one subject, but we're going to do this
We're going back to
our normal
new
thing
format.
of bolting a couple of things together.
Yes.
And talking about how they affect us and how strategies we can use to cope with them in life. So we're going to talk about anger and forgiveness.
Oh, that's a good pairing.
Yeah, so kind of interlinked, but what
It's
we'll
almost
do
like
is...
we put some thought into it when we generally haven't.
the first thing that came into our heads. What was it? We said, I said, I'm pissed off. And you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we thought anger and forgiveness, that'll do.
That's it.
So, so I thought we'd explore anger first. First of all, we need to define it.
Cool,
so
okay.
I suppose, but interesting thing, I suppose you would define anger initially as an emotion. I think it's a very interesting emotion because it's a very animating emotion.
Yeah.
It's a very forceful emotion, a very powerful emotion. One that we obviously experience, some people more than others, I suppose, but we experience a lot in our lives. It's interesting to me as well, if you look back through history, anger has often been expressed as a god. So, for example, the Romans had the god of Mars, the god of war. And
see, my brain goes to chocolate.
I think this was the Greek
the god of Mars,
of anger and hatred.
Yeah,
you're thinking of
I'm
Mars,
gone now.
Snickers, that whole
Sorry,
thing.
John. Yeah. Anger.
But you would kind of think of that because it's such an animating force. Why it's like a spirit.
Yes.
That takes over you. And can obviously change your actions, animate you in a certain direction, make you feel a certain way. So it's obviously been a powerful motivating force throughout history, and like I say, often defined in that way as a god. I suppose nowadays, though, we look away or we look down on anger, or we try not to be angry, and we think anger is a very bad thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, but I think there is a lot of anger in the world at the moment. There's a lot of anger about what's going on. There's a lot of anger about people. Maybe people are a bit more open with that anger now. Through social media and everything else.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between anger and rage.
Yeah.
I think anger, like you say, is an emotion. It's a natural occurring feeling.
Yeah.
As we have to tell us things. And people don't listen to their anger because it seems to be, it's looked out, you should never be angry. Angry is bad, angry is wrong. Lock your anger away, or it can be seen like that. It's not seen as a kind of, anger can be a really motivating, positive. You need to listen to your anger, and it's when we don't start listening to what our anger is trying to tell us at the beginning that it kind of can build into rage, and then it becomes out of hand, and then but anger, I think, is a really natural experience and emotion. Like you said, it's like happiness. You can't get away from it. It's part of life. Yeah. But it's a really interesting one that it gets shut down so quickly, and I think it's interesting in men's mental health because a lot of guys will come to me, and I think we're very comfortable with boys cry, and that's fine. That's good, and we should be encouraged to be our emotion. But that message is promoted a lot. Men need to be in touch with their, the sensitive sides, and it's okay to cry. Yeah, but we don't tend to go, look, it's okay to express your anger.
Well, I think in our society, you're very much told not to express that anger, especially men. Yeah. And wherever I go, and I don't think this is just me. But you go into the doctor's surgery, and it says we will not tolerate any abuse, any style. We have a zero tolerance policy. You go on a train, it says we have a zero tolerance policy against any sort. It's almost like it's saying to you, look, you're angry, repress your anger. And you think it's anything. Well, I'm not angry. Well, I'm not allowed to say anything.
Don't be an arsehole and go into Terry and shout at the receptionist.
Absolutely not.
And I think,
but it's almost the presumption that that's what you're going to do. So I feel the need to tell you not to do it.
And anger can be intimidating, especially. But where we're in a boxing club, so a lot of the guys will come in and they'll be angry. I haven't seen my kids for so long, or I'm upset at what's happened in my life. And if they're not kind of upset and crying about that, they're kind of and they're animated, and they're not directing the anger at me, but their anger. But I can understand if you're kind of in a one-to-one situation, and you're in above a desk, and please can you be quiet? Can you calm down, please, sir? I'm just trying to tell you how I feel, because we say, how do you feel? Well, I'm fucking. Could you please put it in the package that is easier for me to contain? And I get it, but here at least, when the guys come in, I'm really all right. Well, hit the bag for a minute, and then you can't. And then the talking starts to come. But the anger sometimes is there it's telling us something.
Well, it's interesting what you talked about there, the expression of that anger or letting that anger out. And you're saying the repression of that anger is
worse.
Difficult and can make it worse. But you saying we get it out on the bag. So you take that anger out on the bag. And like you say, physically, there's only a small limit to how long most people can do that.
It's often, I'm going to tear that bag apart. Are you sure? Yeah, go on, mate. And then like after 10, 20 seconds, if they've not been training, it's like, I've got nothing left to give.
Well, it's almost like the anger changes, doesn't it? The anger changes into something like you say that then you can verbalise because it's like the physical outlet.
How you're feeling. You know, you need to do something with how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes we're right to be angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's things you need to...
Well, anger is, I mean, again, going back to this definition
You're making really cross, John, talking about anger.
But anger is an active opposition to something. So something makes you angry. It's like something has happened that you don't like and something has happened that you are annoyed at and you're opposed to and you want to stop or you want to change. I think that's another definition to anger. So it's that opposition. And again, I think, you know, sometimes that opposition can be healthy.
Yeah. Because, you know, and there is a downside to anger. If you're going around being horrible to your family and your kids and you take it out on people, that's not healthy anger. No. That's just being a bully.
No, and I think also you could define that as well. There's almost a healthy anger. It's like there are things you should be angry about, injustice that you should be angry about, and you should feel I want to do something about that, and you want to oppose that. And so there's an animating spirit, if you like, that anger is pushing you towards that. But then there's also a very negative anger, and as you're defining there, if you're I think one of the worst points of anger is taking the anger out, generally because it's been repressed, although you're in opposition to something, on other things that are not connected to that anger, and misdirected animosity. Yeah, you know, I think that's a very just angry people who are lashing out at anyone.
And what I've seen as well is people need to learn to control their anger, because some people can't control their anger, so it does get, and they use it, and they're just kind of, it's like there's no container for it. You know, they've not been shown how to contain it, and people get this fear that if I let my anger go, everyone's in trouble. I have to sort of squeeze it. Well, learn to deal with it. Yeah. You know, learn to contain it. And what we have seen over some come in and they don't think they're able to contain their anger. But okay, well, I'm going to put the bodysuit on now, and you're going to come in and be angry at me, and you can contain it. You know. Because if you twat me in the face, I'm going to call John over. He's going to go have a word with you. But you know, and people, they learn, hang on, I'm in control of this. I am in control of my actions. So therefore, you know, you can control your actions. You know? It's when people, you know, don't deal with their anger, then they just let it become rage. And, you know, and some people use it as an excuse to behave anyway. They're like, I'm so angry. Well, I think I talk with, you know, my clinical supervisor, Ryan, will talk about people trying to find in their body where the anger is. And kind of we're like this, you know, where's the anger? I'm set right. What's my body doing? I'm getting that twist in my stomach. What's going on? And trying to talk to yourself more, right? Why am I angry? What's going on? Why am I starting to get these feelings? And the sooner you can kind of, right, I'm angry because of this. I'll go and talk to the person who's upsetting me. If you can do it earlier on, you can't. But it's when you try and suppress it and it grows, and people get resentful, and they don't bring it up, don't challenge something. And then all of a sudden there's a bang, and then everything goes wrong. Yeah. And it's not nice to be, when someone's angry, it's not nice to be around. When it's out of control anger, it's
no. And I think obviously we can link that anger to the next, almost what you call the next stage of anger, which is violence. Yes. Which is something that, like, this is like you say, you're in opposition to something, you're animated, you want to do something, that can come out verbally and it can come out physically as well. Yeah. I mean, just asking you though. I mean, just you. Yeah. As the main person in the Cornermen dealing with men's mental health and suicide prevention.
Don't you be pointing at me, John. This is very.
I was pointing at you. How do you think that anger manifests, particularly in what you could call, we're in the business of suicide prevention, that anger becoming violence, which almost turning inward, and then can that lead to catastrophic outcomes? Yeah,
when people get angry with themselves, don't they? That links into that Thomas Jordan's Furious Suicide, when people, you know, especially the burdensomeness, you know, I'm so useless, I'm such an idiot, I'm so, you know, and people often in their heads are that, like we often talk about, there's no living with an abuser in their head. That no one can be as horrible to themselves as they are in their head. The way they just, and that the difficulty with that is once you start verbalizing in your head how useless, how terrible, how you're angry, you're such an idiot, you are like living with a violent, aggressive, angry person, but it's kind of contained in your head. So people, that's quite common. Someone saying, in my head, I really go to town on myself, and there's an interesting balance in that, because there are some bits in our character that we want to change. So we kind of use the word appraisal rather than, so we try and encourage people to praise yourself. Yes, if you're taking too much ketamine. Yes, if you're being a horrible bastard at home, you've identified that's wrong, so you need to do something about it. But if you allow yourself to sort of, you go down into that burden, and then you go down into a spiral. So there's that real kind of looking at yourself and saying, hang on, this is what's good about myself. But also, if I was to praise myself, I could do with, being a bit more active at home. I could do with being a bit more, less aggressive, less snappy. All that could do with taking less drugs. All that's true. So it's that balance of kind of trying to say to someone, get angry at yourself in the right way. Yes, I'm fucked off that I keep relapsing. What do I do about that? Don't keep relapsing, and so you keep relapsing because I can't do anything about it. So it's that, use that. Come on, get the fight in you.
Yeah.
Get the fight.
Well, that's motivation, when anger in opposition to that failure. And so you want to stop that failure.
Yeah.
So you want to push
and that's where the analogy of the Cornermen, because you've got to find the right anger. You've got to find the justification. Come on, let's keep going. You've got to be angry a bit with yourself. So it's an interesting. We do use anger and try and sort of use it as a motivational. Come on, let's get a bit of fire in our belly.
Yeah.
Let's have a bit of let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get a bit angry with yourself. Just don't get. So that's where I think we can use anger quite well.
Yeah.
And its benefits, but obviously we see.
Well, I think that's motivational and focusing anger.
Yeah.
And I would say, that crosses over into, obviously, as we're based in the boxing club, I use that boxing club analogy, but being an angry fighter generally means you're a useless fighter.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
you'd think you'd got to get pumped.
Yes, there's getting focused and using that anger to focus your aggression, but you have to keep thinking. And often a lot of this, you see these antics before fights, a lot of the sort of intimidation tactics before, it's often trying to get someone angry. Trying to push someone's buttons, find out how I get you angry. Because if I can get you angry, you're going to be useless. Now, if you want to absolutely just blind rage in the ring, then you're going to be useless. You're useless as a fighter.
Yeah.
You just swing in and you're not thinking.
You must be burning up a lot of energy as well.
Yeah, the analogy I would use is you burn up energy, but it's like, imagine if I was going to play you at chess and I made you absolutely furious about something I'd said about your daughter or your family, whatever I've done. Yeah, it's very difficult to play chess.
Yes.
You can't think. You're thinking about the anger.
Yeah.
And that's dominating your thought process. And you're not thinking about what you're actually doing. Yes. And that's it takes it out. But then I would disassociate. People associate boxing with violence, and I don't associate it with violence. I think violence is a separate thing.
Yeah.
Born out of that rage.
Yeah.
Whereas, but I would say sometimes there is anger in boxing, but it's focused and it's positively used.
Yeah.
And and then I would say that what comes out of that is not violence. The violence is fairly useless.
So that's where I think what we're saying is that the anger really, to try and get rid of it is, and people feel bad about their anger. I hear a lot. I shouldn't feel like that. Well, let's understand what happened. And there's been things that have happened to people in their lives that they're entitled to feel. Well, not entitled, but it's natural that they would feel angry about because it was wrong.
Yeah.
And it, or situations. You can't, I shouldn't feel like that. Well, you did feel like that. Accept it, acknowledge it, and move on from it rather than, and then as another thing to beat yourself up from. The way to feel bad is if you've not accepted it and you've allowed that anger to spill over and hurt other people, become rage, and that anger then affects people that you care and love about, then yes, you need to.
I think also if you misdirect that anger. So if that anger, like I said, we said anger is triggered by being in opposition to something. So something happens and you're not happy about it. You don't want it to, somebody takes something from you or hits you or does something that can make you angry because you're like, I'm against this. I don't want this to happen. Yeah. So therefore I'm going to take some action. I'm going to animate myself to stop what I'm opposed to. But what you can do is you can take something you're in opposition to, which is something that's happened to you. Yeah. And you just take that anger and that rage, you don't focus it, and that then comes out, can often come out of people that are close to you, which tend to be people that love you. Yeah. And so that anger is directed against them. completely undeservedly.
Yeah.
And that's a very negative aspect of it.
Yeah, and there is plenty of negative aspects to anger, and I think that's the problem with anger. People don't. It's a bit like that. It can go out of control. People are worried. Oh, if I start this and I become, am I going to be in control of what happens, or are they going to be in control of what happens? So that's where I think where I've heard it to kind of try and notice it when it's first starting, and try and really think, what is it about?
Yeah.
What am I angry about? And try and think through that. What can I do about my anger? How do I stop? How do I stop it from getting more of that? And that comes down. Sometimes you might need to go and have a conversation with someone, a difficult conversation. That we don't like those, so we don't say anything, and we just hope that they'll notice that we're in a bit of a something's wrong, or that it will change, and it doesn't. They keep doing it. We've not said right at the beginning, hey, look, I don't agree with that, and then you're fucking, or someone else gets it.
Yeah.
And especially violent rage is obviously violent rage and anger is very destructive.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most destructive things. And so anger is a really interesting one. It's part of it's one, it's part of happiness, joy, anger. They're all there's all gods that represent them.
Yeah.
So that's why.
One of the interesting things I think in our society as well is that in the 50s with Kingsley Amis and John Osborne.
Wow, I didn't see this.
They were coined with
Who?
that sort of literally in the 50s. Either Kingsley Amis, I think, and John Osborne.
Who were they?
They were the angry young men.
Oh, were they?
They were coined as a literary sort of movement, as it were.
Yeah.
It wasn't by them. It was by other people that said these are the angry young men.
Yeah.
And that was taken up as a bit of a name, and it's a bit of a positive thing. So we think of angry young men. I mean, you think of like Paul Weller in A Jam was an angry young man. Or John Lydon in the Sex Pistols was an angry young man.
Or the suffragettes, angry women.
But we kind of like that. Young people that are angry, to be an angry young man, we think of that's, you want change, you're opposed to things that you see as injustice. We kind of think that's positive. Angry old men, not so much. Angry old men, we tend to think are just lashing out, frustrated.
Right. Maybe they should change it. It's bitter old men that are the problem.
Yes,
I think bitter old men just. But angry old men, if they linked up, they can be, they've got wisdom.
Maybe that's the definition then. Is maybe we don't hate angry old men, we hate bitter old men.
Yes. Yeah. We'll do bitterness another time. But that leads to anger for sure.
Yeah.
People being bitter and not,
Well, resentment. Resentment leads to anger.
So I don't even know you could say it. Is it a different emotion? I don't know. Bitter, resentment, anger, I don't know.
Well, they're all facets of anger, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Just throwing it out there. But
well, interestingly enough, and when you look at Greek gods or Roman gods, they had different types of gods for different types of anger.
Yeah, it makes sense because, like you're saying, it comes from, you don't know where it comes from. It just sort of takes over you, possesses you. Some people are, blind anger and stuff like that. So anger definitely is. It's an emotion that we cannot hide from.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily
going anywhere. It's not going anywhere.
It's not necessarily negative.
Yeah, no, and it's completely natural. And I'd like to take a bit of the kind of guilt that's associated with it out of everything.
Yeah, but I think it's important to understand that it can be positive and negative anger.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to focus it and use it to sensibly animate.
It's like a
response, an oppositional response.
Yeah.
To some sort of stimulation of that anger. But if it becomes rage, I think that's a good definition. If it becomes rage and it becomes misdirected, then it's almost entirely negative.
So I think, when it's starting to happen, trying to figure out what am I angry about.
Yeah.
And deal with it in a rational, sensible way.
Yeah.
To stop it becoming rage and it being destructive. Think of it like fire, I suppose. You want to keep it nice. Don't let it fucking go out anywhere. It
can be useful or destructive.
Yeah.
So moving on from anger,
yes,
which comes nicely into forgiveness. Now again, I think if we're going to stop being angry and we're going to start forgiving, we need to define what forgiveness is.
Quick change, though, isn't it?
It was a quick change, but I was just I thought we were petering out on anger.
We were,
we were starting to repeat, and so we needed to pick it up something. So I mean, forgiveness. It's a very it's a
difficult one. Forgiveness.
It's a big thing, isn't it? And it's difficult to define. And I'm trying to think how to define. I mean, forgiveness. We have forgiveness. I suppose mainly we think of forgiveness in a Christian sense, as idealised by the example of Christ, to forgive your enemies, and that's the difficult bit. Or as Oscar Wilde said, always forgive your enemies because nothing annoys them more.
Well, there's kind of, they're both right.
Yeah. So you have forgiveness. Forgiveness is seen as very much as a virtue. If we talked about anger as seen as something that in our society is very much seen as bad, you should keep it down, you shouldn't express it, then forgiveness is something that we want to see all over the place. We want everyone to be forgiving. We don't see it as anything negative at all in forgiveness.
Well, I think some people would see it as a weakness.
Yes, you can see forgiveness as a weakness.
People would assume that.
But I think also a problem with forgiveness in our society is that it's seen as such a positive thing, and I'm not saying it's not a positive thing, that therefore it's kind of bandied around as this is what you should do.
Yes.
You should forgive. And I think forgiveness shouldn't be given lightly. Forgiveness, you have to really go into the depth of forgiveness. You can't just say, yes, I just forgive. And that's the end of it. You know, there has to be much more of a deeper thought process.
Yes.
To forgiveness in order to achieve it.
And, you know, when I think of examples, you know, there's things that have happened to people that, you know, are very difficult. It gets batted around as a kind of, oh, you should forget, and it, you know, but when there's been something quite hefty happen to someone you love or yourself, that's where it becomes really tricky subject, you know, about how do I forgive what's happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, some of the, you know, someone little, so like, you know, we know one of the lads who, you know, was in a group and they said, let's talk about forgiveness. And he said, you know, there's someone I could kill because they did something horrific to someone that he loves very much.
Yeah.
You know, and then so it's a bit like anger sometimes. It's okay to talk about forgiveness in a kind of bracket, but if you start getting a bit kind of deep, it can become quite, whoa, that's not quite what we mean. But from forgiveness, from my understanding, where it does help, is it's not so much saying that what happened was okay, but you need to somehow find a way of separating yourself from what happened so that you can live the rest of your life without being tied to it.
Well, I think this is the big selling point to forgiveness, is that if you can forgive, you can then move on.
You can move on.
If you can't move on, then you're going to be tied in this cycle of anger. I suppose you can come back to that.
And it's easy to say, but very hard to do. But the rewards are.
But I think forgiveness as well has to be linked to justice. So there has to, you know, some sort of justice. And in a way, you could use another word. You know, do you forgive after that? I mean, I was always going to reach for that word retribution. It's almost like something bad has happened to me, but it's been, you know, we have a justice system.
Yeah.
And you can't say, listen, you've done something bad to someone, so we need to even that out. We need to give you X amount of time in prison. We need to impose a fine. We need to do something. And that justice is maybe some way towards forgiveness. You know, and a lot of times people, you know, you see these terrible stories on the news when people come out from court and, you know, they say they've got some measure of closure now, that some justice has been enacted. And other times people come out and say, I don't see it as justice.
Yeah, and then so I was talking to someone yesterday that got assaulted and that the person never got caught.
Yeah.
So there's a sense of injustice, but to be able to forgive would be able to help them separate and move on from the situation that happened. So it must be very difficult. I agree, if you've got some kind of justice, it must be a little bit, okay, I can move on now. They've had there, but if there's never been any justice, that must be a real struggle, you know. And fair play to, you know, we've seen great examples of people doing forgiveness, and really fair play to those people, because you can see how much it's freedom.
Yes, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
and they are able to move on with their lives, and they would, you know. But you know, I really feel for those people that are struggling with it because of what's happened to them. It's a very difficult, unimaginable kind of predicament to be in, and some people don't want to forgive.
Yeah,
and then they, you know, and they're kind of, but are they then stuck in what's happened forever? I don't know. I certainly see the value in forgiveness, but you know, you have to. I think that if something happened to, you know, one of my family, that's when you'd think, well, that would be a real struggle.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you'd think, right, well, I could forgive him or I could kill him.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure but that would be what you'd have to struggle with, I think, on that kind of higher kind of level when we're talking about forgiveness.
Yeah.
It's a massive, it's talked about easily, but when you really, it's a massive
It's like an iceberg, isn't it?
Oh.
It just seems like, look, forgiveness at the top. It looks very nice.
And it's
when you look down,
forgiveness,
that iceberg is massive.
Yeah.
And goes down very deep.
Yeah.
And it's how do you achieve it and who are you achieving it for?
And
do you really want to go down that route? Like you said, some people say, I don't want to forgive. I don't want to forgive. I want to, I want to keep almost this animating anger.
Because some people would prefer revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you just get into like a negative spiral, and there's, looking at it from a strategic point of view, without being lucky to be able to do so, without all the icky feelings, forgiveness is the prime goal, because that releases you and produces a much more kind of better outcome in life. But that's kind of like me saying, Arsenal should play like this and win every game. It's just not. You have to wait till the game's playing to see how it pans out and be in it and understand it, because it must be so hard to wrestle with those feelings.
Yeah, and I suppose in a way, but one of the phrases that I always like is revenge. You can look at as the opposite emotion to forgiveness. Yeah. So are you going to forgive or are you going to get revenge? And it's the best form of revenge is success. So if you go on and make a success of your life, and
and people who are out to cause misery, their life, they have to live with them. So everyone has to go to bed at night and live with themselves. So if you've done horrible shit to people, you have to be the one lying in bed at night. If you're being devious, if you're cheating on people you love, if you're doing all that, you're the one that has to go and live with those feelings. And I don't care who you are going to struggle at some point. If you're able to say sorry, if you're able to sort of say to someone, I understand you're faulty and I'm faulty. I think you're I don't, bear no ill, but I forgive you, that I'm free. Then you can go to bed knowing that you can be with your own pep and feel less knotted inside. So I think
that's another side to forgiveness, and another part of forgiveness is we've talked really exclusively about, if something wrong has been done to you, and then if you forgive that person, then you will feel better.
Yeah.
But there's also a side to that where, like you say, if there's been some sort of betrayal or something, and then that person might say, I want your forgiveness. I want you to forgive me so that I don't feel this bad. So, it's the other, it's the perpetrator that needs the forgiveness.
We ask for forgiveness ourselves sometimes. And it's, it's like when you've done something wrong and you want that forgiveness. And if you get it, like, wow.
Well, it's in the Lord's Prayer, isn't it?
Yeah.
Forgive us our trespasses and forgive those who trespass against us.
And that's reminded that that
forgiveness is encapsulated in that.
And that's part of, we're all capable of doing horrible stuff. We're all capable of being stupid. And that's probably the good bit in the Lord's Prayer. Forgive me for being a twat as I forgive other people for being a twat.
Yeah.
It reminds, it's like, oh, right, it's a lot better than kind of, everybody, help me forgive all these wrongdoers. But I'm all right. It's we're all in the murk. We're all capable of doing stupid stuff. And forgiveness, we all free. If you when you have been forgiven, you're like, I really appreciate that, and then you're kind of set free. So we often think about it from the perspective, how do I forgive? But actually, we forget about how when we get forgiven, how much it kind of releases us to kind of move on. So the upside for forgiveness is that everybody gets to move on. And maybe that's the difficulty, in that, I don't want that person to be able to move on because what they did was horrible.
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel, they need to suffer. And you can understand it.
Yeah.
But it's just not the tactic that's great, sustainable, long-term for your life and future, I suppose. You're kind of where you want to go. But forgiveness is a really...
Well, it's a very difficult balancing act, isn't it? Because you can't give forgiveness lightly.
No.
Because it has no value and it's not healthy for you. And you can't, similarly, you don't want to never give forgiveness. You don't want to go to the other extreme.
No.
And never forgive and never forget.
Yeah. It's a massive subject, I think, forgiveness. But it's not... It's just, it takes so much. It's we throw it away. And I think it is because we've seen it so often. Forgiveness, blah blah blah. It just and then forgiveness of you. We get to the forgiveness of your sins and blah blah blah. But when you start to unpick it, it's like, wow, it's one of the most hefty things if you can achieve it. I think that's why it's so vital, because if you can do it, it's so freeing.
Yeah.
But it's a hell of a thing to achieve, really. Because I'm sure some people say, I've forgiven you, and you just I forgive you, hold on to some real resentment and bitterness about it, like, but keep bringing it up. Yeah, I've forgiven you. Yeah, but I'm gonna fucking bring it up next time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
because that awful thing.
Yeah. I don't always wonder how much memory, because I've got a terrible memory. So I think I forget about things. So I think, am I a forgiving person, or have I just got a shit memory?
Yeah.
Or and some people can remember every detail about what's happened to them. And so that must. So I wonder how much kind of like our personality makes it easy to forgive and not. If you're someone that's got this kind of memory that just keeps bringing things up, it must be a nightmare to try and forgive. But if you're like me, a goldfish.
Well, there are people. But there are people that dwell on that and dwell constantly on slights and wrongs that have been done to them. That may not have even been intended as slights and wrongs along the way.
That's it. Yeah, they've never checked it out.
Yeah,
just assumed that.
And never gone for the forgiveness.
Yes, and it turns people. That's probably where we talked about bitterness earlier.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of the side effects of not forgiving is bitterness.
Yeah.
You hold on to things and you become resentful and bitter, and you just think everyone's a horrible git, and you remember every horrible thing.
Interestingly, bitterness, we've talked about forgiveness and anger, and we've identified with both of those that there's positive anger and negative anger. There's kind of positive forgiveness and negative forgiveness, or giving and forgiveness. Bitterness, I think you can't have positive bitterness.
I think bitterness
that's one none of us like, none of us want, none of us want to go there.
But honestly, like, people do love it because they hang on to it. It's like picking a scab, I think. But bitterness, there's no kind of
there's no upside.
I'm going to use my bitterness to but I'm going to use my bitterness to improve the world.
It's an interesting division of anger and lack of forgiveness that is almost out there.
Blessed be the bitter people.
There are no positives.
Bitter, and it just is, and it doesn't affect anybody else but the person. If no one else is. You being bitter with that person over the road, I think they're not going to care.
The thing is with bitterness as well, what you associate it is with not moving on. So it's not moving on. It's never moving on to the state. So you've gone from the anger, you never move through to the forgiveness.
Yes.
You just stick on the bitterness and you just stay there, and everybody else moves on.
And it sticks you there. And I've seen it trap people at a point in time. They've not moved on from a point in time. Because they're too bitter. And it's a horrible one, bitterness. I feel, on one hand I want to throttle the people a bit, but also I really feel, because you're like, you could be free from this bitterness.
And you're stuck in a hole.
And maybe the only way to be free from bitterness
is forgiveness.
So it's a whole kind of this anger, bitterness, forgiveness gets all wrapped up together.
Yeah.
And the only way out of it really is forgiveness.
Yeah. Okay, well, on that note, I think we've, anger, use it positively, not negatively. Don't get stuck in rage. Forgiveness is a good thing, and for God's sake, don't be bitter.
Love it. Can we have T-shirts made up of that?
Yeah, I'm going to put that all on a T-shirt. Maybe we'll have to go run down the back as well, but it'll work.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was
brilliant.
Great.
Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, John.
And we'll be back next month.
Yeah. Cheers, Marky. Take care.